Security Halt podcast. Let's go.
You're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare. With a man who's the best. With guns, with knives, with his bare hands. A man who's been trained to ignore pain, ignore weather, to live off the land. His job was to dispose of enemy personnel. To kill. Period. Win by attrition.
Harry Wilson, welcome to Security Halt podcast, brother.
Hey, how's it going?
Pleasure to have you on. I think it's important to show authentic transition stories. Nowadays, everything can get put through that filter of it's perfect, it's amazing, I'm succeeding. But that's not often the case for us. Oftentimes, as we know, the science has proven it, the data's out there, you're going to struggle. And oftentimes it starts while you're in uniform. And I say it all the time. The hardest fucking job on an ODA is a team sergeant who then has to move into the sergeant major. Like, you don't get a fucking break. Yeah. And a lot of dudes struggle and they can't show it and they can't be honest and they can't say that they need to take a knee. And something that you're doing a great job of at highlighting is your story, the things you struggled with. And we're all human, brother. So today I want to take it back from the beginning, take it all the way back to where it started. We tend to think that Green Berets are these heroes like John Wayne and Rambo, but oftentimes there's a story of struggle, and it starts at childhood, brother. And I'd like for you to tell us where it all began, man. Tell us how Terry started out.
Oh yeah. So it's kind of funny. Like, you don't know kind of where like how you lived until like you start talking to other people. Like, it's normal, right? Your childhood is your childhood, and it sounds normal because that's you're around, whatever your community, neighborhood. That's how you grew up. So you figure that's how everybody grew up, Yeah. I don't think I really realized like how different kind of my lifestyle was and my childhood was until you join the military. You start talking to other guys and they're like, what? you
don't eat struggle sandwiches? No?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of where the nickname trailer kind of stuck right off the bat pretty early on. So telling some old childhood stories, so.
In reference to the trailer park.
Yeah, in reference to the trailer park,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but I think trailer gang.
yeah, exactly. But I think people like join the military, a couple different demographics. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of Midwest come in, suburban. And then you get the inner city where it's kind of like, you don't really have any other choice. Like, that's kind of, like I said, that's your get out of jail free card,
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I came from a little bit of both. So I was, grew up in St. Louis. So came from the Midwest, had a lot of the, that kind of patriotic background, but also had the street life. So,
it
was a little bit of both. Right. So like, hey, I want to serve my country, but I also want to provide for my family, and I want to get them out of the situation that they were in. So that's kind of where my story started,
No.
So
a lot of people don't realize that it's often the kids coming from really difficult environments that have that post-traumatic growth that achieve monumental success in the military. I've met more of those like myself and like you that made it at the top of the top, that rose to the very top. And it's like, yeah, dude, I had no other option. It was either this or jail.
yeah, exactly. Like, when you don't have that safety net, and then other people are relying on you, like it ups the stakes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you have to succeed. Like, there's not a different course of action to take. Like, you're like, this is it. There's no safety net. There's nobody there to protect me if I jack up,
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is, man.
Did you come in as an 18 X-ray or?
No, I came in as I was in regular Army first. So did my time in regular Army, and then so I got to my unit September 11th of 2000.
Damn.
And then the towers hit 1 year later. And then we deployed to Iraq. Or no, we reported to Qatar first.
Yeah. And
then we were there for like 11 months or so. And, but no, I mean, you're pulling security on FOB, right? And I'm just like, came back and then deployed again. This time we went to Iraq, but we were attached to like an SF, an ODA. And I'm like, and these guys are running the gun in. And I'm like, man, this is it. That's what I want to do.
That's it. That's
so
the same story for so many of us.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
That first time you see dudes downrange and they're actually able to affect the combat environment, actually do things. It's like, fuck this. I don't want to be on a fucking fob. What MOS were you?
I was an MP, man, before I went.
No shit.
Yeah. Kept that hidden for a long time.
Yeah. 95 Bravo back in the day. Now it's something different.
I think that was a 95 Bravo. Yeah.
Yep.
I got all the way through the Q course. I got through selection and even the Q course SUT, and none of my cadre knew what MOS I was until like at the end, and they asked, and they're like, "You're an MP," and now they're like, "I thought you were infantry," and I'm like, "Nah, but hearts and man, I know how to play the game quick and early."
That's a shameful secret so many of us carry. I too started out my career as a young NP, man.
Oh, it's no harm, but the reality of it is, man, you get in there right off the bat, you're meeting guys or whatever, and you're not necessarily like guys are like, oh, you're the dude that's arresting other infantrymen, like all the bullshit. I'm like, nah, that's not the case, man. But like when I came in before September 11th, it was before the war, so I had the opportunity to go infantry. They gave me an option for underwater welding and some other things. And I'm just like, I'm a kid off the streets, and I'm kind of already like very adrenaline junkie kind of look. And I'm like, bro, we're not in war. Like, what am I doing in the infantry? I'm like, I'm gonna go clean my weapon and then train, but I'm never gonna do anything. I'm like, it's a pretty shitty kind of way to think about it. But I was like, man, if I go to MP, I might be able to shoot somebody. Like, that was my thought process as a young kid.
Stateside kill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, oh man, I might be able to get some action if I go into MP, so.
It's so funny. I was a kid in the Guard, and I was like, well, I can start serving while I'm in high school. Fuck yeah, this sounds cool. I'll make rank. I'll get college money. Hey, the money for college, like, you have to pay that up front.
Oh yeah.
Then the state kicks in some money. But I had the same process. I was like, man, I could do something. I could be a cop. And it's like, dude, you are so far removed from real law enforcement.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
I think it depends on where you get stationed at too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the military in general. Like, you get one MOS and think you're going to do one thing, and then you go somewhere and you're like, man, this is not what I thought. But somebody else can deploy or, go somewhere and have a totally different experience,
Yeah.
I was a private. They put me in an MP car as like a private, like right got there. Like, you know what I mean? So I went and I was doing law enforcement shit. Like, as soon as I got there. And man, I'm telling you, when I showed up, it was almost kind of like, it was funny because it was almost like, this is before Super Troopers. It was like Super Troopers. So I show up, right? I'm a private, and then they're showing me like, hey, this is what you developing SOPs and everything.
Yeah.
And another patrol car shows up. These two kids were in civilian clothes, but they were also MPs in the unit. They were drinking in civilian clothes, drinking, and I'm just like, what is going on here, man? I'm just like, this is not. This is not what I expected,
No. Oh man, it's such a weird world, man. I remember one of the kids that I went through MP school and basic training with. I ended up seeing him like years later. Now I'm a Green Beret in Honduras, and it was just like holy shit. I am so glad I went to selection. Like, this dude was still like an E4. I'm like, this has been decades.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, what are you doing with your life? I think, oh gosh. Yeah. It was one of those things where, like, thank God you had a path for me.
Yeah. But I think in the conventional, like in the regular, we say conventional army or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, so I was an E6, but I got to the unit and I was, came in as an E1, and then there was E5s that I made it to E6 before they made from E5 to E6.
Holy shit.
In the unit, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, and that was kind of the time where, like, as long as you showed up the right place, right time, right uniform, and you could do PT, and you've already beat 99.9% of the unit population.
Yeah.
And if you give a shit, forget it. Like, you know what I mean? You have a little bit of intelligence.
Yeah.
It's over.
It's such a weird, like, the old start your uniform, spit shine your boots. Like, people joke on it. But it really, like, if you were just that little, if you just had that much discipline, you
Oh
could
yeah.
just
Yeah,
skyrocket.
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. Now I think that's back then, and people were still
Yeah.
pretty tough and whatever. Like nowadays, it doesn't take. What is that? Joe Rogan? Who is it? I can't. Was it Rogan that says that, or Dana White or something? It takes like half a Like if you're just half a savage right now,
Yeah.
I mean, you can crush it, you know. But people
So
think
true.
opportunity comes to them, and they don't want to go to opportunity, or they want to complain about something, but they don't want to get in the arena. You know what I mean? And try
Yeah.
to fight for anything, you know. So it's like, well, if you're not going to
Yeah.
do anything, then you really don't have anything to stand on to do.
Yeah, it's that mentorship that's missing right now from individuals like us.
Yeah.
The best have been gone for 20 plus years
Oh
on
yeah.
deployments, taking it to our enemies. And there hasn't been individuals that are willing, like you see it now, and it's prevalent on social media. People are advocating for like discomfort, being willing to do hard work. And it's like, but there's the other camp that there's people that really literally say like, no, it's all about comfort.
Oh,
don't do hard things. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that mindset you kind of got to get through first, you know, because like one thing, you know, obviously going to the digital age, this is something like a whole way outside of my comfort level. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and then, but the reality of it is, man, is you look at some of this stuff and you're like, you can marginalize somebody else as what they're doing because they're giving out like information online, and you're like, well, what qualifications does that person have? And I'm like, well, you know, that person may be the manager of a McDonald's, right? Yep. And how many people are not have any leadership experience or not? So that person who's a manager of McDonald's, there's still a population for that person to where they can help them out. You know what I mean? But we really want to quickly to show, oh, I got more experience than that person, or I got more than that. Why? You know what I mean? And you're like, he's not talking to you. So just pass on by then. Like you
exactly,
go by, bud. And then, you know, relate to somebody that is talking to you, you know.
Dude, how tough has it been for you transitioning, coming into the space and harnessing that tool set? Because I mean, it's difficult for everybody. Like, having to like dive into that world of social media.
Calling all golf enthusiasts. Get ready to tee off for a great cause at the inaugural Krulak Classic Charity Golf Tournament on Wednesday, September 11th at the historic Greystone Country Club, located in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just looking for a fun day on the green, this is your chance to make a difference. Enjoy a day of friendly competition, delicious food, and fantastic prizes, all while supporting the Krulak Marine Alliance of Alabama. Don't miss out on this perfect blend of sport and philanthropy. Register now at krulakclassic.org. That's KRULAK classic.org. And swing into action for a cause that truly matters. See you on the course.
Oh man, it's a whole different world, you know? And my biggest thing where I came into it too is like, for one, being Generation X and being SF, right? It's, you know, I only had social media because my kids. So I would just kind of keep an eye on them a little bit. Or like originally when Facebook came out, I was on social media just to like keeping up, you know, deployed, seeing what the family was doing. And like, that was the easiest way to post pictures and kind of see what they were doing, you know? Instead of having to send it to you. So, but I remember being a team sergeant being like, no phones in the team room. Like, not because you didn't have to, because guys were on the phones, like messing around. I'm like, no, we got shit to do. Like, no phone. You know what I mean? So like trying to do that now, you're like, listen, man, if you're owning a business, there's no more commercials.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist. Like, people don't watch TV and watch a commercial, right? So if you have a product or a service to sell, that's the only place you can get it off on. Is through social media, right? I mean, that's how you do it, right? Now, on top of that is, if you want to advocate for something, or you want to be like, hey, listen, help people out, like, you have to be willing to get outside of your comfort zone and tell your story and kind of talk about things that worked and didn't work for you, you know?
Yeah.
The one thing I see like on social media, which I don't like, and that's why I kind of came out, is they tell all the everything they did to be successful, right? But they don't tell the lessons learned. Like, they don't tell like, hey, this is what I did that really hindered me. Like, this is what I did that not, like, I didn't get here to where I am because I just win all the time. Like, you know what I mean? And like, that's the one thing that kind of really, really like bothered me when I look at the social media space. It's everything's perfect. Oh,
exactly.
Do this with me because I'm so great. if you telling me you're so great, you're the last person I want to work with because I don't know if you've ever failed. Like, I don't know like can you take a punch? Can you get back up whenever you know what I mean? Like, so that's just me. So that's why I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be real. I'm going to put it all out there. And like, hey, these are struggles that I had, and then, and go from there, man.
And that's absolutely what, I think it's important. I want to ask you now, like, when did things, like, I know in my journey, like, I know that nexus point where it's like, okay, that's the moment in time where everything fell apart. When you look back and reflect, what was that critical moment? When did things fall apart for Terry? Because we didn't see it. That's the one thing, like, and the audience doesn't know this, but we actually served in the same company. You were our company sergeant major.
Yeah.
And I know I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see, like, and you came into work and it was like all day, every day. But when did things finally like catch up to you? Yeah.
So like, that's the thing about it, man. I think a lot of 18 series SF guys, or even high achievers, all together, no matter where it is, it's like you can put, especially with this, any person who's dealt with trauma before knows exactly what I say. Whenever you can put up a face and you can get through anything, right? So you pull up this false thing like, hey, I got everything squared away, right? And then depending on the people who knew me before, right, knew there's a difference, a little bit of difference, right? But the guys that didn't know me before are kind of like, okay, well, this is who I am. So this is kind of like, okay, dude's still squared away. He does what he's supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? So like, you don't see it, right? So for me, through growing up as a kid, I'm living on the streets. So you kind of learned, you already start kind of hardening your heart. Like, I was in and out of moving around a lot, in and out of homeless shelters as a kid. My mother dealt with, addiction. My father was, he came in and out of the picture at times, but they were separated. Yep. So, nothing against them too, because they dealt with their own demons. I'm 100%, I have no qualms over that. It just, it's just, they were trying to do it the best they could with what they had. And that's just the way I grew up,
Yeah.
So from there, coming in the military, right? Got married young, had kids. And then now you have people counting on you, right? And then, but it was always, for a long time, it's one thing to the next, right? So it's one mission to the next, right? So
Constantly
then there, okay,
moving.
I'm going to the military. Okay, now I got to focus on this, right? So any issues or concerns that you have, you just kind of pack them away. All right, hey, right now you're done with the military. Now, okay, now I want to go SF. All right, so that's my next, mountain to climb. So I go do that. Right, come back, you got a deployment. Right, back and forth to one deployment to the next deployment. I would say the initial time where kind of somewhat of the reality kind of started setting in for me. This is the first time, I guess, the biggest traumatic is like some of the fights and everything as a kid. That was one thing, like the always on being on guard and that, I've had some close calls, I would say, where, I was probably doing some things outside of that where it could have got me in some trouble. Right.
Yeah.
But in the military, we were in Helmand province, and the initial kind of troops in contact where I thought I was a tough kid, and I was like, oh shit, like these people are really trying to kill me, like this is real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, when you get those really close calls, that's kind of the first kind of, I would say, like, oh shit, this is real. But then, after you get that first initial portion of it, like, you start enjoying the
adrenaline rush.
The adrenaline, man. I mean, this is the ultimate game. And it sounds weird to say it, but it is, like all the small details that you have to do, the relationships you have to build and cultivate to be successful in combat operations is you can never regenerate that anywhere, So I really enjoyed it. I love doing it. But it did take a toll because, like, at that point, to get through it, you kind of, you harden your heart, and you get through this, like, hey, this is the guy I need to be to survive. And that back then, that was, we're running and gunning back and forth, like, it's banging and singing, like they said, you know what I mean? Like, it was some rough trips, and, but it was one after another. Come back, try to deal with some family things and deploy again, come back, go TDY somewhere, go to school, come back. You know what I mean? So you're constantly pushing off any of this issues that you have for the next mission set, right? And then you surround your purpose and your identity as being a Green Beret, realizing that that is all going to collapse in one day, right? So I was running gun pretty good. Then I did my team sergeant time, and then I got picked up, or I got was able to compete for the first sergeant position over first special forces command, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting that. So I went over there as a geo bachelor. So that was one thing. Like, you come off the team, and now you're going to another leadership position, to where it's not the same as the team life, but you have another mission to do, right? It's so.
You don't have that buffer of those 12 guys that like.
No, you don't have that buffer, but you're still moving forward, right?
Yeah.
And that's why the one thing, like I always said, like, whenever guys have a hard time, they come off an ODA and they go to one of the S shops and they never get to go back. You know what I mean? Like, those guys, you'll see those guys fall off. At least they have some support, but a lot of times, sometimes that support is negative, because they want to, leadership wants to go, oh, what the hell? You know what I mean? Or one or two things. Either they coddle them and they don't help them out at all, because they have no intestinal fortitude to let them know, hey man, like, you're getting fat, like, what's wrong, like, what's going on? There's some issues you have going on.
There's signs there.
There's signs there, man. Like, hey, let me help you out. What's going on? Or they do the opposite, and now they just like judge them and like, oh, this dude's he was operated at one point at a very high level, and now he's not. And you don't think there's something going on there? Come on, man. You know what I mean? So those guys represent or hit that a lot sooner than what the guys that are retiring, that are keep on moving, right? So I did my first sergeant time, geo bachelor the whole time there. So that was not, I would never advise that, but came back, and then got picked up for sergeant major while I was there. Came back, did the group S3 sergeant major for a little bit for interim before I took a company. And then, for me, whenever it fell apart is whenever Jacob. So I was coming in as a company sergeant major, and I don't even think I'd met the company yet.
Yeah.
And COVID was just starting, and y'all just got back from a pretty bad deployment yourself. And then I got the call that, my son was in a motorcycle accident. And then, man, it started spiraling out from there, Like, so the company never really got to see, like, my whole thought process, kind of my perspective changed. And like, that's when things started really kind of starting to unravel for me. Everything that I dealt, that's when it started. That's when everything that I have kind of put aside for years is like coming to a head, Then I start looking back on, like, man, all that time I was gone, 24 years of service gone. The first 20 years I was gone for almost 11 years of it. And I'm like, you can't get that time back. So now, like, you lost a child, and now you start looking at, man, like, how good of a father I was gone so much, like all that I missed. You know what I mean? The hardness that I brought back and that my family had to deal with. Like, you know what I mean? And you really start kind of really, the guy that you thought like you were, this hard charging, like this warrior mindset, and it helped me survive, but it didn't help me. It wasn't enough to get me through this next phase of season of my life. That's when it started kind of unraveling, having a hard time. Now, once I retired, that's whenever it just went. Or once I came out of position, once I came out of position is whenever, everything just started like really going downhill for me.
Yeah. And that's the key thing that I always like tell guys. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's oftentimes the time where you walk out of the team room for the last time, or you walk out of the company for the last time, and it's just like everything hits. But you had a monumental challenge to deal with. Like, losing a brother in arms, losing a brother in combat, that's one thing. Like, I don't know that pain of losing your son.
Yeah.
And so many of us cannot understand that. Like, what were some of the things you were actually able to utilize to help that process, help that grief? Because that is something that I know that there's there's plenty of our brothers that are suffering through that, whether it's a child or a close relative, and spouse. Those are things that are happening to us that we need resources. We need to understand, like, what can we do to fight this enemy?
So there's things that we do, like as a GB, that makes us very effective, right? And we're able, I think, probably able to compartmentalize a lot of stuff, right? So you learn how to deal with death. You learn how to deal with killing, right? It's part of the lifestyle. It's like something you're like, hey, like you understand it,
Yeah.
This here was something that like ripped me to my core, and I did not know how to deal with it, right? So for years I've kind of compartmentalized it and just understood that, hey, we go to combat, something happens to me or something happens to you, it's understandable. Like we know that is something that could happen, right? Like, so we understand that you're gonna have to take life. Like that's something that some of us don't have an issue with it. Some of us, it bothers them later on in life, but this changed like how I didn't know how to grieve. Like I didn't even know how to get around it, And then so I came back to work. It was like a week after, like from the time of the accident to the time we went back to work was almost a week.
Yeah.
Right. So that was like not even 2 or 3 days after the funeral. We had to plan the funeral 2 or 3 days after the funeral. Like we're back at work because we didn't know what to do. Like I didn't know how to handle it, And then, you have to, I talk to people sometimes too, and they're like, man, I don't know how'd you do it. How'd you get past it? My wife, my other kids, like, you know what I mean? Like you're the man, like you have to. What other options do you have? If you don't decide to get past it, I wouldn't say get past it. If you don't decide to move forward, then what are you doing for your family? What are you doing for your kids that are going through the same issues and problems and they're dealing with this? There's no other choice,
You got to be there for them. You got to be there to let them know, like
them, And for a long time, I try to be like this, like I'm trying to push through it. But the problem is like, if you're not dealing with your own shit first, you can't give anything to anybody else. Right.
So true.
So like you have to be able to fix your own issues that you have going on before you can really help anybody else. Because if your cup is empty, you're not doing shit for anybody else. Right. I'm at the point that the older I get, the more development that I do is for other people, not for myself.
Yeah.
Right? Because if my cup's full, then I can give more to somebody else. Right. But like SF, you're taught like selfless service, or just in the military, selfless service, which is great. And I do believe in selfless service. But if you're always giving, and you're empty, you're not as effective. You can't help as much, So for me, I just had to rebuild, and I probably went way too far, too long before I started getting issues. I would say anytime you start seeing some of those red flags in your life, the sooner you can start implementing ways to fix them and get in a consistent routine and get help, then the better you're going to be off in the long run. Because if not, the longer you wait, instead of, if I would have probably took some more time, I don't know what the right answer was for me. My journey was my journey.
Yeah.
But if I wouldn't have took as long as I did then, maybe I could have came out of it a lot sooner.
Yeah. What were some of those red flags? What were some of the things looking back?
Red flags I would say right off the bat is, especially I would say for SF guys, is your fitness level, right?
Yeah.
Like your fitness level, at one point you were physically fit. Once you stop going to the gym and stop working out, that adds to so many other problems. Like, you know what I mean? Like people look at fitness as like, it's a pillar.
It is mind, body, and spirit,
like everything.
Yeah.
So you have to do that. Eating healthy, right? Because your fitness isn't good. Now you're eating a bunch of garbage and processed food, and that shit's not going to make you feel any better. So like those things, overeating, not eating healthy, or if you don't know how to eat healthy, find out how to eat healthy, not working out, drinking, drinking or anything you're doing, just to like, get past anything. Like those are red flags. Anger, you're not dealing with your anger and you're frustrated, huge red flag. If you're feeling anxious or on edge all the time, huge red flag. If you don't have any peace, huge red flag. All these things, if you're not leading your household and you're fighting with your wife and your kids, huge red flags. Like all, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
like,
one thing that we don't talk about as men that we can now identify looking back is the emotional eating.
yeah,
Man, everybody that is struggling, or we knew that was struggling, that was the first thing we saw. Like
yeah,
and you called it out. You said earlier, the S3 guys.
yeah,
The first thing you see is the weight gain. The first thing you see is because you go there's a complete type of work schedule.
yeah,
But guys fall into this pit of despair, and you see some guys that lean on alcohol and food, the comfort food.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, he's a piece of shit, horrible. And it's like, well, maybe he's struggling through something.
Yep.
Like, and it's not about shaming somebody. It's about just simply saying like, hey man, like, you can overdo with food. You can overdo with the sweets. You can do it with anything, but it's that sense of comfort. You just got removed from your team. You got removed from a place that you love being, or you got an injury and you moved down to a support section. So it's like, oftentimes we want to reach for that mean spirit and be like, and hit him with that heavy hand, or you can identify like, okay, this guy's going through something.
Yeah.
Maybe he needs a workout plan. Maybe he needs some support. That's something that like it's crucial to look at, especially when you retire. We identify all these other things, but like, you're right. What about nutrition? And how did you figure that piece out for yourself?
So for me, I started off, I went back to kind of, obviously I'm in a dark place and I'm trying to figure, all right, how do I get myself out of this? Right. Marriage is on the rocks, always frustrated, always angry, like somebody cuts me off and I'm like ready to run my car. And, you know what I mean? I'm just like, man, this is not like where I want to be, So I just started getting back to where I knew, and, in SF and as a team SAR and like a Bravo, like I really focused on PT. I thought PT is huge, right? Yeah. I think, before going to combat, that's the one thing that you can kind of harness on a team is like, I want to see how you react under some duress, right? And you can do it physically and mentally. Right. So, how do you, when you squeeze them, do they crumble or do they think, and like, that's how you have to sweat together. You got to do hard things together. And before combat, that's the only way you can do it. You know what I mean? It's through hard training and physical fitness. So that's why I went back towards originally. So I went back towards physical fitness. And then I went very, through SF time, I was always performance based. Like as long as I could perform, I really did. I mean, I probably ate maybe a good 50% of the time, maybe 50-50, probably whole foods, good whole foods, and then, processed foods or whatever. And then once I started retiring, man, I started cutting out a shit ton of processed foods, and I'm like, my goal there was to get off some of the medication. Right. I was like, man, I want to get off the medication. I want to try to fix this, this. Right. So, I had always done, I do hormone optimization. Right. So because for me, like your hormones, like having your hormones on a natural level, like taking all of the TBI, the high cortisone levels of being in stress for a long period of time, like does a huge toll on your hormones, right? So like especially guys in our community, like you can see that like a lot of them have really, really low testosterone, and that's not great. That's not good. So then started eating healthy, working out, hormone optimization, and then just reading, trying to better myself. Went to marriage counseling, and I was talking to my wife. I'm like, hey, you need to go to counseling. I need to go to counseling. All right. So whatever the talk therapy or whatever it is, and started doing that. And then, that's kind of where anything that I could do to like better myself a little bit is where I started gravitating towards. I'm like, okay, I'm getting this figured out. All right, now what about this? Because I haven't fixed this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, and then with my son, where I was like, hey, listen, so I grew up in church. I always said, hey, I was a Christian, but it was kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a lot of us
Yeah.
while we're
1 foot
serving.
in, 1 foot out, And so I was bettering myself, and I was like, hey man, this is working. And but I still couldn't find peace. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, so I'm eating healthy, I'm coming off the medication. I'm going to, talk therapy, and I'll talk about that on what I think about the therapist thing, whatever too. But, and then like we're going to marriage counseling, but I still have this like anger in this, like this saltiness, this, borderline hate, not understanding people. And so it was bothering me, man. So I told my son, I'm like, hey, listen, let's try to find a church to go to. We were on town. We went to like every church, a bunch of different churches. And then I'm the kind of guy where like I'm going to the church, especially when you're trying to do something, but you're maybe not sure that you want to, like you're making excuses on why you don't like this church. Right?
Yep.
You're like, man, that preacher's driving off a nice car for being, you know what I mean? You're looking like, what am I? I'm here. Is this, is this like, what kind of concert is this? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so you're like questioning all this stuff, man. And you forget, like, it's easy to judge on the outside coming in, but church is made up of humans who are all sinners. Like, and you're sitting there and you're thinking like these people are supposed to be perfect, man. Like, so it's not the reality of it. Like, you know what I mean? So like, but we're very quick to like judge that. Right. So I'm just like, all right. So, then I'm like, hey man, I started going all in, started reading scripture, and then started going to church, and then started getting involved in small groups. And then, you start, I used to read stoicism, quite a little bit. Right.
Yeah.
And, you start looking at scripture and you're like, scripture came out way before stoicism. And it's really, there's a lot of it that translates over. And I'm like,
exactly,
and then you start like actually going to scripture and you start living by it. And you start seeing a lot of things in my life that started like automatically fixing itself,
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I'm going all in here, and it really changed. It was the only place that I've ever been able to get where I've been able to find some peace.
Yeah, that's it. Mind, body, and spirit. And,
yeah, you have to have it. You can't just do one of them. Like, you have to figure out a way where, because one's going to fix one, but it's not necessarily going to fix the other, and you have to figure out like, okay, hey, what does this look like for me? And majority of us, it's, the mind and body are pretty easy. I think people will say, hey, now the spirit one is the one where you get controversial because like people are thinking, oh, well, this way or whatever. But the mind and body are pretty easy. And personally, in my opinion, it's a spirit one. It's like, especially being like an 18 series guy, like you don't want to give up control. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to give up control to Christ. Like, man, I don't know. I'm not sure. If you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't
man.
I don't know if I'm ready for that, so, but like, changed my life, changed my family's life. It was just so.
Yeah. It's one thing, and you said it perfectly, man. We don't want to give up control.
Yeah.
We don't want to just say like, okay, I'm going to pray on it.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I'm going to take action in it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't. There's some things in this world that you cannot control.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think a lot of people get this false like perception of like, you can take action. Right.
Yeah.
But like, you still can pray on it and take action, right? And then you can still like at the end of the day, but you have to give up control to like, okay, I'm going to take action because like I've been given these gifts to do these things, but they may succeed and it may not succeed. And if it doesn't, hey, you know what I mean? Like, just keep moving forward. You know what I mean? Like, so, but.
And I think that on this side of your journey, on this side of your healing, I think it makes perfect sense for what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Absolutely makes perfect fucking sense. You've been a leader your entire military career. You've been a mentor, a coach your entire military career. But how did you finally come to terms with the idea of like, you know what, I'm going to lean into this entrepreneurial track. I'm not going to be a contractor. I'm not going to work for a defense tech agency. I'm going to go into this 100% like on my own and chart this course by myself.
Yeah. So for me, so I was kind of back and forth, right? Because obviously you come out and you're like, okay, what am I going to do next? What's my next, move, And for me, my time is my most valuable resource. Like you start realizing your time is more important than the money and the assets that you have, right? And I learned it the hard way, right? And when Jake passed away, I'm just like, you can't get that time back, And so for me, I was, me and my wife were talking like, hey, what am I going to do next from here? We talked about I was like, well, hey, what if I do the coaching consulting? And then, like, how does that look?
Yeah.
If I wanted to do that, how does that look? Because originally I was trying to do the consulting portion of it and like try to go to companies and try to get, business, whatever, but everybody wants to hire you. Right. And I'm like, I don't want to be hired to work for someone else to get, like, I don't want to do that. Right. I want my own time. Like, so like now, the only way to do that is kind of going through like the digital realm. Like you have to go through the digital marketplace to do that, And I'm looking around, I'm trying to find people that are actually doing this, that are successful. So I can have like some kind of business model, kind of proof of concept of how it's working, And then, so I'm finding some different places or whatever. And then, I fly out, do a couple events, and try to see kind of how they're doing things, how they're doing social media, that kind of stuff there too. What's successful and what's not, and just kind of trying to figure it out, and then just kind of growing that portion, because that's the one thing. Like now we live in a time frame. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. It matters how many, how much you've been on social media for.
Exactly.
For me, I've been on 0.
Yeah.
So like it's start from like ground 0,
Yeah.
And then unfortunately I didn't take a whole lot of cool guy pictures whenever I was active too, I got a little bit, but
that's so many of us. It's one of those things where there were people that did and everybody shit on them. And I've got good friends that made amazing videos, amazing pictures. And it's like, oh, fuck that dude. And but you know what? He has that for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
He will be able to share that with his kids. He will be able to share that with his family. And now looking at all of us to have maybe like 3 or 4, it's like, fuck. Like, but it was one of those things I don't think there's a team sergeant out there who you could fault for making those decisions because, hey, I don't need you taking pictures. And dude, I got my fucking ass handed to me for taking videos. Like, I'm a cool 18 Bravo on deployment. It's like, guess what, motherfucker? Go clean the fucking guns and get to work. And it's like, oh man, but my buddy on that team's taking photos. It's like, you got work to do, man. But it's one of those things where like, hey, like you did it, but now you have more powerful. You still have the experience. You still have the ability to like this is where I'm from. This is what I did. Like, fucking Afghanistan's already not even relevant. And
exactly.
So, but it's the individual and the ability to look at where like you put content out there that shows that, look, I am not bullshitting you. I've been through the absolute fucking worst. I turned it around, and so can you. Specifically for our age group. I don't need fitness advice from a 20-year-old. I don't want that body. I don't need that body. I need the fitness advice and the nutritional advice from somebody from my age that has been where I'm at, has been in that position of like, hey, look, it can quickly go off the rails. You can quickly get overburdened, and you can focus on your mind and your spirit, and then you neglect your body. And that, hey, if you need to turn it around, you can. Here's how. And that's what I see from your platform, which is, and it's exactly why I reached out. Like, hey, I need a coach. Because we say, every Green Beret, every SOC professional says, I can do this on my own. I got a gym out back. Well, can you?
Yeah.
I couldn't.
The thing about it is, so this is the thing about it is, this is where I've like looked at, and I kind of changed my mindset on like coaches or mentors or whatever. Is most Green Berets can get there.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take you to get there, right? And how much knowledge do you need to like acquire before you get there is the question, right? And a lot of things that we did prior coming up, what we thought was the right way. Like I learned now, it's like, nah, we made it harder than what it is and didn't get the same results as what I do now.
Yeah. Arm farm every day at the gym.
Yeah, exactly, man. Total habit of overtraining, you know? And then you get older and you're like, man, I don't have that much time. Like I only want to put 30, 45 minutes in the gym during the day. And I'm like telling you, like, I'm at 7.6% and I work half as hard as what I did whenever I was, you know, overweight and I was eating like shit and I was overtraining and I was like tearing my body up, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't have to do that. You know, there's a smarter way to do that. So, you know, when you do like a coach or a mentorship, it's like, all right, so if it's going to take me 2 years to find this information out, but I can get it in 90 days for someone else. To me, time is money. And to me, that makes more sense. I'm going to pay somebody to do that so that I don't have to do guesswork, then try something out. Is it not working? And then like, okay, I just put 3-4 months into working out and eating and I'm not seeing the results that I want. And then now I have to start over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, same thing I said, like if there's a 24-year-old kid that has digital marketing that I want to know, and he is some nerd, he has zero life experience, but I want to learn that from him.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay him and he's going to teach me and I'm going to sit in a chair and I'm going to take notes.
Yes.
Right? Like that's where the humility comes into, right? Because you have to realize that it's like, it doesn't matter what you know and how much experience you have. It's like, does this person have something that I want that he can give me in a shorter amount of time so where I don't have to work with it, right? And then another thing is, it's like, there's that fine line too on, right? You know, this is, you know, I want to help provide for my family for this, right? Because so there is a, you know, a financial like freedom from doing this, right? Right. So there, and then you're like, and I've tried to help guys out. And if I had millions of dollars, I could not do this for free and it would be effective.
Yeah.
Because everybody that I've tried to help out, that I've tried to like help square them away, has fell off. Because you have to have some kind of intrinsic, like you place the value on it, right? And if there's not some kind of, you know, we're not in the military anymore to where like you can do, you know, retraining like there, you can make somebody's life difficult. You can give them that kind of pain. So the only pain you can really give somebody is the financial pain, to where it's like, okay, this is going to cost. So now I'm going to do what this guy says because I want to see the results that I paid for.
There's got to be a buy-in. You have to be able to put your money in.
You have to be able to, you know, so like, and that's the thing about it though, too, is this kind of, you know, especially because I want to help people, right? So that's the hardest part for me, right? You're just like, you know, and I've kind of walked through that and I'm like, all right, so I've kind of dipped my toes in both of those realms or whatever. And because veterans, man, we are sometimes the most like, we can hate more than any other group that's out there at times.
Bro, right before we got on, I checked my Facebook. And which is like the one I don't post anything. Everything is like cross-posted for my feed, but I checked my personal and I checked one of those groups, one of those the soft brother groups, and I looked at the thread. It was just the worst. No, just hating on people, and it's like, you have no idea what that does to you first thing in the morning when you put that much hate and negativity into anything. Like, fuck, dude, if you're listening to this, the first thing you should do in the morning should not be jump on a thread hating on somebody.
Yes. But like, and I get it, man. I get it because like when you put in the military and you put 100% something in, right? And then you can't get over that grief and trauma because of what you put in. There's a lot of bitterness and there's a lot of hatred and there's a lot of whatever. And I'm like, oh, well, I did more than this guy. Why is this guy have 1.5 million viewers? Or why this guy, you know, didn't do shit. You know, he's talking about X, Y, and Z, right? And there's a lot of hate there, right?
Yep.
But I mean, I'm just telling you, like, you wouldn't be the person that you are without that military experience. And then you can't
Yep.
hate on something where you signed a dot. Like for me, I had
Exactly.
bitterness. You know how I got rid of it? I'm like, I signed on the dotted line saying I'm going to do this. Every
Yep.
time I re-enlisted, I signed, right?
Yep.
90% of those deployments that I went on, I volunteered for. You know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah.
I'm looking for the next deployment.
Yep.
You know, like, hey, do you want to be you want to compete for this position? Yes, I want to compete for this.
Fuck yeah.
Every hardship that I did was just as self-inflicted as it was given to me. So, like, you have to be like, I did that.
Yeah.
And for me, I wouldn't be out the situation I'd probably be in prison right now or dead if I did not go the route that I did in the military.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so true for so many of us.
And I know my family is even the hardship and the sacrifice that they had to make, that generationally, that I know that my grandkids are better off now than what they would have been as if I would not have went the way that they did now.
Yeah.
My kids are better off than even all the struggles and the things that I had to learn. They're way better off now. And once you can realize that and let that monkey off your back, then you can not get up and hate other veterans for like trying to do something to help other veterans or to help other people. You might not like them, then scroll past it, man.
Exactly. You have a choice. You have a choice in what comes on your feed.
Yeah.
And then the beauty of it too is choosing what you reflect on.
Yes.
Like everybody that served at some point can look, well, for majority, everybody can look back to a positive interaction, somebody they mentored, something great that they achieved. Reflect on that.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's hard with the way Afghanistan ended.
Yeah.
You're constantly bombarded with Taliban parading their military equipment. Who cares?
Yeah.
You didn't have a choice, and I didn't have a choice in how it ended. But you can reflect on the good. You can reflect on the people you impacted, even if it was just one time, one moment. Focus on that good, man.
Yeah,
I think it's so much better for us, and we need to hear more of that. And just choose not to engage the negativity.
Yeah, you have to, because if not, man, it'll make you mean, salty, hate. You're gonna hate everything.
Yeah,
like so. For a long time, man, one of the things that I had to take off the news. So I had the news apps. I deleted my news apps because I would watch them because I gave a shit what was going on.
Yeah.
So like I'd watch the news and I just get pissed off. I'd be like, see the woke policies, all this liberal bullshit. And I just I got to the point where it just made me so jaded. I had to delete it because I'm like, man, this is just not healthy for me. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying like, don't do anything about it. And there's like things you can do to help people out, but do things that are on the positive to help people out. But you just complaining about something doesn't help shit out.
Yeah. Get involved in local community. Get involved with your local government. I have the ability to reach out to people on a platform to share positive stuff. You can do it too. Yeah. If you want to be of service again, there's a million ways to do it.
Yeah.
And some of it can be financially, lucrative. Like you can be of service, like right now, being coaching and mentoring somebody, and you can make money off of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's the only motivation.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like somebody out there needs and wants your mentorship and your guidance. And if you scale it right, if you build the right model, you can get support from it as well. Because guess what? It benefits the person that you're helping. Just like we said, like if there isn't a buy-in, somebody's just going to fall off. But when they know like, hey, all right, he's worth this. This coaching is worth it. Like, then they're going to be involved. They're going to wake up. They're going to do the workout. They're going to check in. Then before you know it, you're changing lives. It's. I'm sure you've already seen it with some of the people that you work with.
Bro, yeah, it's like crazy, man. Because a lot of these dudes have already been high performers and high achievers. Like almost all of my clientele have already been like, majority of them were either in the military, were SF, or were high achievers at one point, and then it fell off. Right. Something has happened in their life where they've had some issues and they're trying to like rebuild.
Yep.
Right. And like that is just like being able to like see how fast like they can turn it around.
Yeah.
It's just it's amazing, but a lot of the mindset, a lot of it's just accountability. It is helping guys say, hey, how you doing? Like, how's the workout? How's your hunger? Like, you know what I mean? Like I do leadership one-on-one coaching, but a lot of the guys that I have now, like don't really need that depending on what they're trying to achieve, So, but yeah, the fitness and the health, it's big change is really easy, real quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your journey, brother.
Yeah, for sure.
If people want to get in touch and they want to be part of your, movement, they want to be involved, they want to hire you, how can we get in touch with you?
So right now I have a website, but then mainly I'm just been using Instagram. So it would be under my full name through Instagram.
Perfect. And we'll put that on the episode description.
Perfect. Yeah.
If you're looking for a coach, if you're looking to get out of your rut, if you're a veteran, if you're a soft professional and you've transitioned recently, I can tell you right now that Terry has not only amazing insight into what you're going through, but he's got a proven pathway to success when it comes to getting yourself back into that fitness regimen. Go check out his Instagram, hit him up. And I'm telling you, I'm one of his customers. I believe in the program, and it's simply being able to reach out and have somebody that's not only been in the fight that you're going through, but somebody that understands what you're going through. There's nothing like having that soft support from a proven Green Beret that knows what he's doing when it comes to fitness and knows what he's doing with nutrition. So whether it's getting back into a gym routine or getting rid of a shitty habit of eating, horrible food, Terry's got you. So please hit him up on Instagram. When this episode comes out, you'll see his links on the episode description, and you'll see us. I'll be tagging on all the reels. So Terry, thank you so much for what you're doing, brother. Thank you for being vulnerable. Before I let you go, what are some other things that you recommend as far as staying on the proven track record of eating good and focused on your fitness?
I mean, it's consistency, right?
There it is.
Yeah. Consistency is huge. Even if you're like, I feel bad, even if you're going for 15 minutes, consistency, and then having a plan, right? So what's funny is like, if I said, hey, listen, do you have a budget on how you pay your finances and how much you use for week to week, right? You probably have an allowance and this is what I'm budgeting. But if you do that same thing with your food, people are like, oh, you're crazy. And I'm like, no, man, like that's the one thing we miss is like the macros are what's going to decide your body physique is your macros, right? Your calories are going to decide what your weight is. So you have to like know what your calorie intake is, and you can go into like a deficit and lose body fat and then do it for however many weeks. And then once you're like, this is getting a little bit too tough for me, then you go back into a maintenance. You know what I mean? But then you're still tracking it. So I'm not losing weight or I'm not gaining fat or losing weight, but I'm eating comfortable for 2 to 4 weeks. But what happens is we go off the rails and we spend more than what we have, and now we're in debt and you got a bunch of fat. You know what I mean? So biggest thing is consistency, have a plan. You know what I mean? And be on a program. Like if you can do that, you'll be totally fine on that realm.
Hell yeah. Dude, thank you so much for coming on today, brother. I cannot wait to see your presence grow on social media and have you back to talk about the other challenges that we face. Dude, there's identity, there's so much. And I am so happy and thrilled to see you kicking ass, man. And you're a testament to what all of us can achieve if we're willing to face that trauma and that identity piece and everything that we deal with on the backside of it head on, man. So thank you for what you're doing, man. With all you listening, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time. Till then, take care. If you like what we're doing and you're enjoying the show, don't forget to share us, like us, subscribe. And remember, we get through this together. Take care.